Welcome to the Lavish Leader, Unveiling Wisdom, a podcast by the Lavish Group. We are a community of powerful leaders and creators. Each one of us is on a different path and from a different background, but we all embody aspects of what it means to truly live a lavish life. And we are here to share our stories. I'm your host, Dr. Erin Martin. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Lavish Conversations. I am here today with our badass guest, Miss Ashley Gordon. Ashley Gordon is the CEO of the Quantum Coach Company and creator of the Badass Manifestor brand and podcast that has almost 1 million downloads and counting. Ashley and her team help coaches start, grow, and scale their businesses, master the craft of coaching, and step into their big coach energy. Ashley is also the founder of the Quantum Coaching Academy, which is an immersive, internationally accredited 6-month certification program that trains the next generation of world-class coaches and leaders in the 8 life-changing modalities that includes quantum life energy coaching, neuro-linguistic programming, EFT tapping, Reiki level 1 energy healing, and hypnotherapy. There is no other program like this in the world. Ashley says she lives for the ripple effect of helping others master the craft of coaching so they can provide life-changing transformations for their clients to fully embody their highest potential. Ashley and I have been having some backstage conversations, and I want everybody to stop what you're doing today because this conversation is going to not only lit, but it is so relevant and so important. So pay attention. Ashley, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I want to say single-handedly. I know you have a team, but single-handedly upped the game on coaching certifications and really just the inspiration that you bring to women to live a life authentically, to live and help people through their traumas and all of the things that are limiting them with the way that your coaching certification has so many things that most people spend years kind of piecemealing together. So congratulations, first of all, on your success with all of that. And I would love it if you would just start out with telling us your story. What's the journey that brought you to the place you are now? And what is it that has pushed you to redefine success for yourself?
Wow. Thank you so much. So I, like so many, have a story of childhood trauma. My mom had Crohn's disease. So she had addiction because she was always taking pain medicine to be out of pain, and it put her in a really bad situation. And my whole childhood, basically, I was her mother, right? Like I was the fixer. I was always trying to make sure she was okay. And that really impacted me in a big way because I had to grow up really, really fast. And I never wanted to leave home. So even when I went away to college for a year, I came home. It's I need to make sure that I can be there for my mom. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do because I explored some things as a child, but I really didn't have any direction of this is what I'm supposed to be in the world and this is what I'm supposed to do. I knew that I liked taking care of my mom. I knew I liked taking care of people. It felt like my duty to do that. I came to this planet and that was my mission and that was what I was doing, even as a child. So pulling that thread all the way through, which I didn't before, but realizing I was a jack of all trades. I was mastering nothing in my life. I was a server. I worked in a nightclub. I dabbled in fashion, starting a yoga line. I worked in real estate with my now husband. I've tried so many different things. I worked in a 9-to-5 job. I did it all. And finally, I started learning about manifestation and how to use your energy and the power of your mind to create your life. And it started to put things into perspective and it started to make more sense to me. And so I was okay, I can manifest anything that I want. Why don't I think about what I want for my purpose? What is my purpose? And I started posing these larger questions to the universe and God. And I started to connect the dots. And then I found yoga, and yoga took me down a very transformational path where I really did personal development and started to like ask myself deeper questions and hard questions. I was always a deep person, but I never had like the tools to really go deeper within myself. And it led me to realizing like I loved empowering people on the yoga mat, but I felt like there was more. And I always wanted more. I always wanted like a bigger life, a bigger impact. I just didn't know how that was ever going to happen or what that would look like. And so I was always talking to people about you can create your life. You can create your life on purpose. Like watch The Secret with me. I would like bring friends to my room and like make them watch the movie and be like, watch this. This is so good. And then I found life coaching. And that's when I was at a wedding and I was on the dance floor, drunk with my husband, a little tipsy. And I see this girl who I had a previous conversation with like a couple months before that. And I was like, Carly, you look amazing. You're glowing. This is like on the dance floor. She looked at me and she was like, Ashley, you changed my life. And I was like, what? Fuck? Like, I was just like, wait, hold up. I was like, that's amazing. And I turned to Todd and I was like, I think I'm supposed to be a life coach. And it just was like this divine download in that moment. Like, I knew nothing about life coaching, did not know anything, didn't know you can make money as a life coach, didn't know if that was really a thing people did, didn't know anything. But I started researching and I started making moves. And that's when I kind of wasn't like, hi, my name's Ashley, I'm a life coach, because I didn't fully embody that identity yet. But I was telling people on the down low, like, hey, if you need any support, like I can help you. And I started working with people for free. And that's when I decided that this was the path and I'm going to go all in. And I invested into learning the craft and getting so many different certifications. And that was kind of the start to the journey. That was the very seed that sparked this whole thing.
Awesome. So you've had these childhood experiences and then just kind of dabbling, and the things that you were able to help people that you kind of knew, people who were in your circle already, and then the feedback that they gave you as how transformative the help that you were giving them was the impetus for you to be like, whoa, wait a minute, I think this is it.
I was just going to say, looking back, it's crazy because I didn't know what coaching was and I didn't really understand what it was because I always thought it was fixing people and trying to like give them advice and tell them what I think. And I was really giving a spiritual perspective to them about their life. Like looking back, that's really what I was doing. And it was helping them, but I would get them to like the stuck belief, but I didn't know how to move them through it. I didn't know how to help them release it fully, if that makes sense.
Yes, totally makes sense. So when you talk about the craft of transformation, my understanding of that is it's more than just having the idea that you want to help people, right? Like it's actually learning how to do that. And then I don't even know how many million coaches out there. And people have some sort of certification program or coaching program where you can learn how to do this. But I think that what you have mastered and what you are trying to teach or you are teaching to those people, I mean, ICF accreditation is kind of the top accreditation that you can get for a coaching program, and you have that for your program, right? So we're talking about an art form. It's your craft, but it's an art form. It's a healing modality. Yes, it is transformational, and that means a lot of different things to different people as well. How have you been able to take that and turn it into an art form?
Wow, that's an amazing question. So I think to just like fill in the gap there on the timeline, I was getting amazing results with my clients after I learned all these different modalities and healing modalities and all these things. And I was weaving them together in a way that was really helping them. And they would start referring me people. And I was always booked up as a coach. And then the business grew and people were like, well, how did you grow your business? And I look back and I didn't have fancy marketing. I didn't have a fancy website. I didn't have any of that. I literally was just helping them get results. And that was speaking for me. And I was like, there's something here. in 2019, I was at my friend's business mastermind. So 2017, 18, and 19, I was spiritual life coaching and business coaching. Like it turned into business coaching. And then I was at my friend's mastermind event and she's like, I want you to speak. What do you want to say? Do you want to talk about manifestation, money manifestation? Because those were all things that I was talking about. And I said, honestly, it's a room full of coaches and in a sea of thousands of coaches that I'm aware of online and people trying to help everyone. Everyone is talking about their business, but nobody I felt was talking about the craft and the art of coaching. And that was always in my reflection, what was my secret weapon was like, if you're going to do this thing that you say you're a coach, that's a huge responsibility and you better be damn good at it. So the night I decided that I wanted to teach how to be a better coach. So that small group of coaches that was in that room, there were 7 people in the room. And my friend and I, we created this like very powerful framework, which is now turned into the quantum coaching method. But I taught that framework that we created raw, real, authentically, just like on the blackboard the next day. Their minds were blown because I was pointing out the mistakes that you don't want to make in your coaching. And we can go over that in a little bit. But just like the mistakes that most people make that they have no idea they're making in their coaching, that if you shift these things, these 5 things in particular, you will have like life-changing results with your clients. These alone, without any of the other tools. So that's kind of how I convey that to them. So after that, 2 people messaged me privately and they ended up hiring me to teach them how to be better coaches. And that was like the whole download for Quantum Coaching Academy. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. Like this is what I meant to create. And it just all came together. And I was just like, okay, this feels huge to create. And I have no idea how I'm going to make this thing happen and how I'm going to get it accredited and how I'm going to do the whole thing. But I just knew in my soul, like that's what you have to do. And so to answer your other question of like how to take the craft and make it an art form, the best analogy I can give you is like when I was trained in yoga, I was trained in a very specific type and it was called Baptiste yoga, which is a set sequence of yoga where it's the same sequence every time. It's like the Bikram sequence is almost the same sequence every time. And as a teacher, I had to master that sequence. I had to be able to recite that sequence inside and out, know the body cues for that sequence inside and out. But what that gave me access to was my intuition because I knew that sequence in and out and I relied on it and I trusted on it. And because I knew where I was taking the people on the yoga mats, I was able to channel messages and trust what was coming through in my yoga classes and be able to like add my flair and intuition into the practice because I had such a solid foundation and framework. So when you have these coaching foundations and frameworks that are like just so solid, you know they're transformational, then you can bring in your intuition and make it your own. And that is where the art of coaching comes in.
Yeah. And what I hear you saying kind of between the lines here is because you had that opportunity for mastery through the yoga training and the yoga teaching that you had already done. And I'm imagining, given your past of your upbringing, your trauma, and all of that, you'd also done a lot of your own work. So you were in that place of receptivity to not only to be able to master something, but to be allowing that intuition to flow, to be able to trust it, which is another huge thing. Like people get intuitive downloads all the time, but they don't trust it. They don't follow it. They don't pay attention to it. That really is probably for the coaching. I imagine as people go through your coaching program, that is an opportunity for them to begin to master themselves as well.
Totally. I mean, that's a huge part of it as well, right? Like we can't lead people where we're not willing to go. I fully believe that. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to live a perfect life. We're human, right? We're never going to arrive. And as long as we're doing our work, we have the capacity to hold space for other people. Because if you're not doing your own work, you can't hold space for yourself. And if you're not holding space for yourself, it's really hard to hold space for someone else in a real way, in a way that is a contribution and not like a distraction
or projection.
Yeah, 100%.
Things get dangerous when you are in those positions and you can't hold space. You're projecting, you're distracting, just kind of adding to the noise. And that's why it's so important to have that. And I think why part of this discussion right here is important is because a lot of people are looking for coaches or considering coaching. And I think it's really important to have a context with which to ask questions and make sure that you are essentially hitching your wagon to somebody who's going to be guiding you. You want to make sure that this is somebody who is not only qualified by the academics, but somebody who is qualified by experience to have that honor to be in that space with you.
100%. It's almost challenging for me sometimes because I've been part of other masterminds, other programs, and it's almost hard sometimes to like, I get in those containers and I'm like, whoa, you have no training as a coach. Like I could tell right away. And it creates a lack of safety for me personally, where I'm like, you don't know how to hold me right now. And your intentions might be good, but I'm not going to open up because I don't feel like you can handle it.
That is such a huge point, Ashley. And I have to say that a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are highly successful, powerful women. And I have experienced what you just said myself, where I've been in a position where I'm like supposed to be in this kind of relationship with someone else. And I'm like, I am certain that you can't hold me. So that's where like safety is a big thing. And when you have a big, I want to say a big personality, you have a big spirit, you have this energy, you have to have somebody that can hold that for you. And for the high achieving big people like that, like you and I, you've got to look for that. Otherwise, not only is it a waste of time, but I mean, it's a waste of all sorts of resources, right? So, yeah. Well, I love where this conversation is right now. And I want to start shifting it a little bit because obviously trauma is really important. Trauma is something that has happened to most people. It's happening currently, it's happening in the world. And I've also recently heard you speak a little bit on your Instagram feed about expanding in the overwhelm. And it has many different faces, right? Like overwhelm can look a million different ways, from like, we can say little o overwhelm and then the big O, like collective overwhelm of the world.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So there's different facets of all of that. What I love about what you're saying and the realness, I mean, you guys, you have to know, like, if you listen to her podcast, 1 million downloads, and she is so authentic and so real with what's going on in her life and how she talks about it. And I think that expanding in the overwhelm is so apropos at this moment because of what's going on in the world, because of coming out of the pandemic, and everyone's trying to kind of catch up, for lost time, life, right? Lost life. And I would love to just have a little bit of a conversation. And we can start with kind of what you were already saying about what's going on in your life and how is this feeling, and what's the mindset that you have about what's happening and what that requires of you, and how does that change? How do you have to pivot? Like all of that.
I think right now, when I recorded that, I was extremely overwhelmed. And today I'm extremely overwhelmed with the events of the world and everything that's happening. And I think the context is a little bit different. Like I have feels different from today than when I recorded that. The level of overwhelm, and it's just different. And when there's a lot to manage in your life and in my life, like there was a lot going on. I wasn't feeling my best. I was having heart palpitations. My son had a fungal infection on his balls. I had never experienced that before. I'm like trying to get everything together in the business and run a household. And there was just a lot of things, good things and not so good things happening at the same time. And what I was downloading for myself was like, I believe that everything that's happening is expanding my capacity to hold, right? Because I think everyone listening, like you said, there's like high achieving, successful women that listen and have been on this show. And I think that as we expand our lives to receive more success, more wealth, more recognition, more of a platform, when that happens like overnight, which is, I would say, rare, it's like really traumatizing to the system. Where like if I or you became like Tony Robbins overnight, we would be like, whoa, I can't handle this. And so that level of overwhelm would like totally probably take us out. It's like when people win the lottery, they don't know what to do with it. So there's times where things happen in our lives and our capacity is adjusting to be able to handle what is occurring for us so that the universe and God can give us what we asked for. Does that make sense? So it's like our capacity expands to be able to receive. And it doesn't mean that we're exempt from it feeling like overwhelming as hell and just like uncomfortable. And it doesn't always feel like rainbows but it rarely feels like rainbows and butterflies. So that's kind of what I was speaking to. And it's like expanding our capacity. And as I'm like talking about it now and reflecting, like today, I'm sad for the world. I'm sad for Israel. I'm sad for Palestine. I'm sad for all the innocent lives. I'm sad for all the Jews. And I'm sad for our world that everybody has to deal with this. You know what I mean? Like there's just like, really? We have to deal with this. And so I don't know what expanding my capacity looks like today. I guess it's just about expanding my capacity for being more real and more authentic and the way that I feel about it all. I think that's what's coming through right now. So there's always opportunities to expand within ourselves and be able to hold life as it comes.
Right. I love this conversation. I keep saying that, but I really do because there's so much juiciness here. You're talking about expanding capacity, and we can think about that. Like, I think about this. Overwhelm is a huge thing for me. Overwhelm is one of the stories that I have. Oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. Overwhelmed means I'm stressed. Overwhelmed means I don't have the time to take care of myself like I want to. Overwhelm means I'm not sleeping well. Overwhelm means all sorts of negative things. It has a negative story to it in my life. And it can become very paralyzing for myself. I know, having worked with tens of thousands of people over the course of my 20 years as a doctor and as a coach and mentor, the overwhelm is paralyzing for a lot of people when it gets to that point. Like their nervous system is toast, and that's burnout, right? So what's hard when we get to that place of burnout, we've reached capacity, right? For ourselves physically. But what you're talking about here in the terms of what's going on in our world collectively and how that affects us like as individuals, this is the difference between like, you're talking about mindset when you're talking about daily life, daily capacity. How do we fit things in to grow in that way? But we're talking about expanding consciousness and the collective of what's happening right now. It is capacity, but it's our capacity for compassion. It's our capacity for love. It's our capacity of acceptance of our fellow humans. This is the way that the universe holds our humanity in that expanded consciousness. And what's happening right now is horrible. And what I believe, at least, that we're called to as individuals and as a collective is like we can become paralyzed by this, which often happens in war. There's a contraction before there's that expansion, where we can expand more. We can bring more love to the world. We can be more authentic. Like you're saying, what's my capacity for being real? Consciousness of yourself is being expanded in the capacity to be real and the capacity to be authentic, to use your voice for your own story, to express what other people are thinking and not saying, or what other people are sensing but are unable to put into words. There's so many levels of that. Does that resonate?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because I mean, I'll shared with you before we hit record, it was just like, I don't like to even say that I'm Jewish online. Like, I don't like to promote that in any way for fear of judgment, for fear of people not wanting to work with me or join my program, because I don't want to lock people out of having that experience because they're judging me for who my nationality. And also for fear of like what others would think, right? Like there's that too. So it's just definitely awakening my consciousness and my identity in a new way. Because as much as I've separated myself from, I went to Jewish Hebrew day school. Like I grew up very Jewish in that sense. And it served me well. Like I had a lot of values from that, but I've separated myself from that. I've been to Israel twice and separated myself from being religious and practicing Judaism to being spiritual. And I think that they both serve a place. And I never saw that before, because as now I have a 10-month-old son and my husband's like, we are raising him Jewish. And I'm like, but are we? Because we're not really, like, we don't practice. We don't go to synagogue. We don't do those things. And he's very adamant about it. And I just never saw the connection. I'm like, no, we're spiritual. We believe in God and the universe and like all of that and higher and source energy and all of that. And like, I can believe in that. And I can also have a place for representing Judaism in my life and the values that they hold. And so I've never shared about that. I've never thought about that. These are just things that are like real and raw bubbling up inside of me right now over the last 24 hours. So yeah, I definitely think it's expanding my awareness, my capacity to like be myself more fearlessly, I guess more in alignment.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think I can definitely relate. I will just share with you, my mother's whole side of the family is Jewish, and my mother's parents converted to Christianity. And so there was this huge separation within their family. And then my father's father was a Protestant minister. So I was raised very conservative Christian and very indoctrinated, if you will. And I have separated myself over the course of my adult life as well from those religious, what I would call dogma, to being exactly what you said. I'm a very spiritual person. I've gone to Theologic Institute. I have studied metaphysics, all of that stuff, which my family would probably call New Age in a very negative connotation. And when I switched from just practicing medicine to really wanting to go in and helping empower women, and spirituality was such a huge part of that, I was very afraid of not only what my family was going to say, but what my colleagues within the scientific community were going to say. I mean, so many different facets of worry and really questioning how real to my identity could I be publicly. And what I found was that I wasn't going to be truly happy until I could be myself unapologetically. And the people who supported me and came along with me were going to be the ones that kind of rose up with me. And those who fell away, it was going to have to be okay with me, because me being inauthentic, there's a, what's the cost benefit ratio there? At some point, it doesn't pan out. And so I made that decision. And what I found was I was blown away, surprised by the people who supported me that I thought, oh man, like my grandmother, who is still alive, she's 88 years old. She was the wife of my grandfather, who was a pastor. And my grandmother was also an ordained minister. She went to seminary and did all of that. But just last summer, she came to my house and stayed with me for a month. And sitting at our kitchen table, I had just finished Theologic Institute. And I was just had a very real conversation with her about who I believed God to be. And it was very different from my Christian upbringing. And what she shared with me was that she had always believed everything that I said. She would say to people when they pastored churches and stuff, she said she would say to the youth, you have God inside of you, go create. And people never really got it. They never really got it. And I'm sitting there having this deep, deep spiritual conversation with my grandmother, who I thought was going to be somebody who sat me down and said, now, Erin, we don't believe that. I'm really worried about you. Right. And that didn't happen. In fact, the absolute opposite happened. And it brought me closer to someone who I thought was going to be a critic of mine. And so that was empowering to me to continue to share a part of me that is, it's most of me, and heritage, ancestry, lineage, the people that came before you that are part of you still is such a powerful, powerful part of you. It is you.
When you say that, what just came through for me was just like, I feel like my ancestors are like, you're the one, like, you need to speak this. Like, they're like, as you said that, I feel like they're now here talking to me right now. Whoa. Everyone listening is like, okay, this girl.
Goosebumps. This is real. Like, this is what you're talking about, like the real and the expansion.
All right, I hear you.
Everyone's gonna be like, woo. I had a similar experience once where I felt like all of my grandmothers from generations and generations back were saying to me, you're the one. And I was like, oh my gosh, because the lineage of my family and the women in my family has been, bad marriages, abuse, being in these religious places or families that they were just squelched. And looking back, I feel like, wow, it's absolutely amazing that I came from that someone as outspoken and opinionated and powerful as I am came from that. And I literally had a dream where these women that I knew to be my ancestors were saying to me, you're the one, you're the one.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. Yes.
Wow.
Amazing. Amazing. So we're talking here about so many things. We're talking about trauma. We're talking about what's going on in the world, our capacity to expand our consciousness, and the importance of authenticity and voice. What do you see are the dangers of ignoring this, particularly authenticity and voice?
It's interesting because so before we hit record, you were sharing with me how you were like not taken back by how authentic I was, but just complimenting how real I was on my podcast episode and how that's probably a big reason why people listen and tune in and all of that. And I appreciated that so much. And it's something that I thought about a lot in the beginning days of my podcast of like really like taking off the armor and like really just going all in because I know the impact that that can have on the world. And it's something that I actually like kind of take more lightly now that I don't think about as much, right? So just you saying that kind of ignited this like, yeah, you are making a difference just by like sharing your real true self. And the impact of not doing that, looking at the over 1 million downloads that we have now and the thousands of people that have listened to these episodes, if I could inspire them to be a little bit more authentic within themselves, the ripple effect of that is endless. And if we don't have that, like it's a level of healing because we've been taught and conditioned to like hide and be perfect and seem perfect and have it all together all of the time. And it's just adding to the trauma. It's just adding to the overwhelm. It's just adding to the problem. And so the impact of if we don't share our real, true, authentic selves, and it's not for everyone to like go on Instagram and share their heart and soul, or podcast. It's in your unique way. It could be in private conversations with people, just being like, oh, wow, she is so real. Like that just inspired me to be more honest. That's in Judaism, we would call that a mitzvah in Hebrew. It's a good deed. And the impact is actually like massive if we don't do it, if we don't share.
You're talking about the ripple effect. And we think about the ripple effect of the positive things that we're doing.
Yeah, but not about the opposite.
Right. What are you not doing that's not having an effect that everybody else is suffering for, or not reaching a point of expansion because of something that you're holding back on. And of course, we can't force other people to do things, but there's a place of, like, in my lineage of spiritual teaching, involution always precedes evolution. And that is a spiritual law. So going in and being in the inquiry of one's identity, being in the inquiry of what is the way to authentically be in life, including our actions, our words, our contributions, our service, all of that, our business, for sure. That involution, that inner work of that, and that what comes out of that is the evolution of an identity, of a person, of the ripple effect, of the next iteration, the next level, the next plane,
The next quantum leap.
the next quantum leap. Absolutely.
I was talking about this with my husband last night. He's often very hard on himself, as many of us are, and always thinks he could be doing more, doing more, doing more. And he works in real estate. He's like, I have so many $1 million buyers I could be calling. I should be calling them. I should be calling them. I should be doing these things. And I help him try to understand like where that comes from. Like that story, like you said, like my story is overwhelmed. Like, where does that come from? What's the root of that? And then once we get to the root of that, how can we heal that? Because healing that story and that lack mentality, like I could be, or I should be, or I'm not doing enough, I'm not enough, and I'm not worthy if I'm not performing, and I'm not all of that, healing that. I was like, that is your next level. Don't worry about the buyers, right? The buyers, like that's not it. Like working in this like physical plane is not it. It's the involution. It's working on that inner belief, that inner identity to come out on the other side of that and heal what's there. You can't even fathom the business that's coming your way or the buyer. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to try so hard and it's not going to feel like this.
Yeah, I totally know. And I would add to that, like, the involution is like, do the healing. What is that? And healing is really just the revealing of truth. So the involution gets to the, what's the belief here? What's really going on? What is this going back to? Is there a trauma? Is there something? And then once you have that awareness of what it is, it's knowing the truth about it, the truth about who you really are or who you are not, that you've believed that you are, what stories that you've believed that other people have told you from childhood or whatever. But knowing the truth is what gives you the quantum leap to go from, oh, I have the awareness, to I'm healed. Like, that's the healing, because I know the truth about this. And that's when people have the aha moments, and you're just like someone who's sitting there with them as a guide. You're just like, oh, this is so good.
This is why we do what we do.
This is why we do what we do. Yes.
You said that so powerfully. I love everything that you just said. And it's so true. And that's where like the fixer in me comes in, where I'm like, I want you to get excited about this. You know what I mean? Like, we're uncovering something here. Get excited. Like, I dork out and geek out on it.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't feel exciting to people. I mean, I remember for myself, it's like, yeah, we show up. We show up to do the hard work. And it can be exciting, especially for people that are on the other side that are helping, because they have a sense. They can sense the momentum. They can sense that something is coming. They can sense that you're on the verge of a discovery. And for us that are on the side of breaking through, like, we've come up against that wall of fire and we're coming up against it again and again, and we're just trying to get through it. We're like, lady, shut up. I am not excited about this. This is hard work. But we keep doing it because we know that we will get through it.
We will. And that's why we're here, like, to do that. Like, we're here to uncover what we're meant to uncover, the truth. And that's also what I was saying to him last night, was just like, get excited about this, because this isn't just about this lifetime.
Absolutely. That's the truth of it. This is a question that I've just recently started asking my guests, because every single one of us has come through so much, and we have evolved and shapeshifted and all sorts of things. And who we are now is not who we used to be. And the things we hold valuable now are not, in large part, usually what we held valuable 5 years ago, even a year ago, let alone 30 years ago. And the truths that we have for ourselves and of ourselves are different as we come into a place of consciousness, of understanding source, of understanding spirit, of understanding, like what you just said, this isn't just about this lifetime. We understand our eternality. So, what is the truth of us now? Is yes, it's a big question. And it's also just a like, what is the truth of me now? It might be in this moment, it might be a bigger picture. And the truth of me right now is I'm just going to get through this day. I don't know what it is. It doesn't have to be a big, giant thing, but it's just a centering question. Like, what's the truth of you now, Ashley?
What I just discovered about myself yesterday and today, and as you're saying this, it's just like, you have to say this. I'm like, okay, I'm a protector. Like, I don't know why that's just like coming in right now. I'm a protector. And that's the truth of me right now. And what I realized yesterday as I was exploring this part of me, I have a guide with me like forever. Like, it's always been with me. That is like, their mission is to keep me as this protector. So it's like a double-edged sword in a way to be a protector, because I'm like, I want to protect and shield the people in my life. And like, I have this like mentality, like, come at me, like I can protect. But like, also I protect myself from being vulnerable, I think, in different ways and being held in different ways. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my truth right now, is like, I'm a protector, and I just discovered that about myself, and I need to explore it more. I get to.
Yeah. A little involution is in order.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm like being a protector of other people, of myself. And what it sounds like is you're also in the inquiry of what does this actually mean and how far do I take this in a
How
way,
can I use
right?
it? Yeah.
How can I use it? Yeah. And this idea, as you said that, I was like, ooh, being a protector. I mean, I have 3 children myself. And of course, most mothers are in like, we have this protector aspect of us, right? But I'm thinking of the importance of holding space. So, being a protector or a fixer, I know for myself as a physician, like, especially when I was practicing medicine, I wanted to be the fixer. I felt like that was my calling. Like, people had a problem, they came to me, I told them what they needed to do to fix it. But the holding space, what I learned over the course of my career, when it burnt me out trying to fix everybody, was the importance of holding space and allowing people to have that their own experience, their own journey, and yet somehow creating some sort of container for them. And I'm wondering for you, as you think about being a protector, what you think the importance of holding space for people to be, because that's one of the things with being a parent. Like, my son is 17, he's a senior in high school. If you ask me, I like say to my husband that I'm like, he needs to stay at home and go to college because he is so not ready to be out on his own. And yet he's going to be 18 and I have to let that happen. So the question now for me is, how do I create some sort of a safety container for him? And I'm wondering how you think about that for your, what's coming up for you.
Thank you for sharing that. It's interesting because I think that learning how to hold space has been one of the most transformational things that I've ever done in my life. And that is part of my mission, where like that protector has also shows up in what I do as like facilitating the Quantum Coaching Academy. I'm literally teaching people how to hold space, because that was the thing that like actually helped my mom get sober. Instead of trying to fix her and change her, I held space for her. I loved her as she was. I met her where she was. That's what we have to do in coaching. We have to meet people where they are to help them get to where they want to be. And so learning the art of holding space has been, I think, this like beautiful balance in my life. And then teaching that to other people ripples that out. And it just feels like, yeah, it's like the divine feminine and masculine energies kind of coming together within me. And I don't know, as far as like, if you're open to it, like what's coming through for your son is really just trusting life, holding space for trust. It's so hard. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy, but it's like, that's what I did with my mom is I trusted like she's on her perfect journey. Even if I don't agree with it, even if I don't think she's ready for, if she wants to move to Florida, I don't, you know what I mean? If she wants to do this, if she wants to, I don't agree with it. I don't think she's ready for that. I don't think she can do that. I don't know how she's doing life right now. Instead of trying to change, I had to say, I love you exactly as you are right now, where you are right now. And I have to like let you go, kind of just like what you said, and accept that if I let her go and God forbid she were to die, I would have to be okay with that. I remember leaving, we were on like a trip, a Mother's Day trip to Disney World, and she was so messed up the whole time. And I was driving myself to the airport 3 hours from Orlando to Fort Lauderdale. She was next to me and she's like out of her mind. And I'm like Googling, like, how long does oxycodone stay in your system for? Like, because she wasn't okay to drive like from the airport, but I was so done with it. I was just like, I have to like let you go. And that's ultimately what brought her back. So there is something to that. Like, let them go and they'll come back, like the song. It's hard.
Yeah, it sounds really, really hard. And as you're talking, and I have protector and then I have holding space right next to it. And maybe that's what it is really like, protect the space for other people's life. It is their life essentially. Right. And I feel, Ashley, so much for you right now. And I mean that in the most heart expansive way. Like, so much is coming to you right now, and so much is expanding for you. The truth of you now is huge. I have just absolutely loved this conversation. And I'm so glad you're in my life now.
Oh my God, me too. Like, I just want to hug you. We just went on a journey. We basically just did like ayahuasca.
Yes. Well, can you tell our audience where they can find you, where your podcast is at, and where they can get more of your goodness?
Thank you. Yes. So I am on Instagram at thequantum.coach. The podcast is Badass Manifestor Podcast. And if you feel called to learn more about the Quantum Coaching Academy, you can just go to thequantum.coach. So that is my website, thequantum.coach. And if you end up filling out an application, please write down that it's from the Lavish podcast episode that you listened to. If you find me through this way, please remember so that I can let Erin know and have her be part of that experience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
The Lavish Leader, Unveiling Wisdom is brought to you by Dr. Erin Martin and the Lavish Group. To find out more about Dr. Erin and how you can create and embody a lavish life for yourself, visit thelavishgroup.com. And don't forget to search for Lavish Leader in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at the Lavish Group, thanks for listening. And remember, you too can live a lavish life of fulfillment, beauty, and love.